This man hunts people for fun, but this time, he chose the wrong target. Meet Sergei Kravenov, a man who doesn't just chase danger, he lives for it. While most people run from death, Sergei walks straight toward it, just to prove he's stronger. But he wasn't always like this. As a child, Sergei was raised by a ruthless father who taught him one thing: the world belongs to those brave enough to take it. No fear, no hesitation, just the hunt. To his family, hunting wasn't survival, it was identity. And from a young age, Sergei learned that respect isn't given, it's taken, from whatever stands in front of you. But everything changed after a tragic loss, because from that moment on, Sergei stopped hunting to survive, he started hunting to prove himself. And that obsession is what drives everything he does in this story. Sergei Kravenov grew up believing one thing above all: the world belongs to those brave enough to claim it. He's not some brooding city detective or reluctant superhero, he's a hunter in the raw, a man who measures himself against life by how close he can come to the edge and not fall. That need to prove himself, to write his name into his own legend, is the engine that pushes every choice he makes in this movie. We first meet Sergei as a kid watching his father teach him the rules of the chase: patience, respect, and a kind of obsession that looks a lot like love. You get why he's intense, it's not just testosterone, it's tradition. His family are hunters, and they built identity and meaning around pursuit. But tragedy cracks that foundation early: loss and the pressure to live up to a name that suddenly feels both heavy and hollow. So Sergei grows into a man who wants more than trophies. He wants validation. That's what brings him to the world we spend most of the film inside: the neon, the danger, and the perverse elegance of big game hunting transplanted into modern cities. When he's older, Sergei moves from the old country into a landscape of skyscrapers and shadows, and the hunting gets more complicated. The quarry isn't just an animal anymore. The people he crosses, the wealthy patrons who fetishize danger, and the underworld players who see hunters like Sergei as useful tools, they all make the hunt twist into something psychological. The movie does a good job of showing that Sergei's enemies aren't just prey with fangs, they're systems and sins and the ghosts of what his life could have been if he'd made different choices. He chases, and in chasing he keeps trying to find himself. Enter Calypso, who's more than a love interest or sidekick. She's a mirror, and a mirror can be dangerous. She's magnetic, a little dangerous in her own right, and she understands Sergei in ways few others do. She's not there to tame him, she's there to be his partner in the thrill. Their chemistry is electric without being saccharine, which helps ground the film when the stunts get loud. She challenges him, teases out his vulnerabilities, and at the same time walks the line that keeps the audience guessing whether she's another softening influence or a catalyst for his further descent into obsession. That ambiguity keeps their scenes sharp and interesting. The plot structure is simple but effective. Sergei builds toward one big hunt meant to prove him. Along the way, the movie layers in smaller conflicts. Fights with criminal operators, moral skirmishes with people who think hunting humans is sport, and the internal war Sergei wages against himself. The film spends a lot of time on set pieces, rooftop chases, ambushes in markets, and mano-a-mano encounters that are visceral. Those sequences are where you feel Craven most. The world narrows to smell, sound, and the calculus of life and death. The camera work likes tight frames and kinetic movement in these moments, and it makes you feel the physicality of being a hunter more than the politics of it, which is probably for the best. One of the quieter strengths of the movie is how it treats Sergei's relationships as part of the hunt. People are as much targets of shows and perceptions as the animals he pursues. He keeps running up against a society that wants to commodify danger, rich clients who rent the experience of being near a deadly predator, tabloids that want to turn his life into myth, and competitors who see him as a threat to their own brand. The antagonists here aren't all black hats. Sometimes they are polite men in suits who hand out invitations to exclusive hunts, and sometimes they are crooked cops. The variety keeps things from feeling one note. There's a pivotal arc where Sergei organizes a climactic hunt that is supposed to cement his legacy. He trains, he plans, he studies the quarry, and the audience is clued in that this isn't just about a trophy, it's about settling scores with ghosts of his past. The build-up is handled with a nice synth of montage and human moments. He sharpens equipment, he confers with allies, and he gets pushed to his limits. The film lets you understand why this specific hunt matters so much to him, which is crucial. A man will risk everything if the thing he's risking it for is the only thing that makes sense to him, and by this point you've been allowed to believe that for Sergei. When the big hunt goes down, the movie pivots into full-throttle action. It's part manhunt, part moral fable. There's an extended sequence where Sergei tracks his quarry through an urban jungle, into rooftops, down maintenance shafts, through back alleys, and the choreography is sharp. It's not just about who's stronger, it's about who knows how to use the environment. Sergei's skills, his patience, and his willingness to be brutal are on display, but so is the cost. The film doesn't shy away from the violence being ugly, it's framed as raw and consequential. That choice prevents the movie from glorifying the brutal side of Craven and instead asks you to reckon with it. Along the way, Sergei's encounters force him to make choices that reveal his character, whether to break a code, whether to spare someone who begs, whether to become the monster people whisper about. Some of these choices are driven by pride, he wants the narrative to be about him, and some of them are unexpectedly compassionate acts that complicate the legend. That back and forth, the tug-of-war between myth-making and humanity, is where the movie does its best work. It's even a little funny. Sergei, who's spent his whole life cultivating ruthlessness, has to awkwardly learn empathy, and the film lets a little lightness in during those moments. A grin here, a soft look there. Humanizing details keep him from being a flat figure on a hunt billboard. Another memorable thread is how the city itself becomes a character. The filmmakers use different neighborhoods almost like different biomes. A high-society gala becomes a savanna of glass and champagne, the docks are swampy and dangerous, the subterranean construction sites are caves with steel stalactites. That variety makes the hunts feel fresh at each turn and underscores the idea that a hunter must adapt to environment as much as prey. Visually it's satisfying and thematically apparent. There's also tension introduced around the morality of spectatorship. The patrons who pay to watch a man hunt a man are emblematic of how late-stage culture consumes danger as entertainment. Sergei both feeds and resists that system. He loves the purity of a hunt, but he balks at being turned into a product. That contradiction feeds into several confrontations with characters who are less interested in tradition than they are in profit and spectacle. Those clashes are satisfying because they force Sergei to define what he actually values. Is it the hunt itself, or the approval of others? Crucially, the movie doesn't let Sergei off easy. He's challenged morally and physically in ways that make the final act feel earned. He pays consequences for mistakes, and some losses are permanent. That stakes-up realism is effective. The climax is brutal but cathartic. Sergei confronts the architect of the system that corrupted his idea of honor, and the resolution is messy. The soundtrack accentuates the hunt without drowning out the human beats, and the action sequences are cut with care, so you always know what's at stake. If I have any nitpicks, it's that a few supporting characters are undercooked. Some of the antagonists could have used more backstory to make their clashes with Sergei emotionally richer. And occasionally the film leans on familiar genre beats, betrayal, surprise alliances, that feel a little predictable. But honestly, those are small complaints. The movie's core, the portrait of a hunter wrestling with his own nature, lands hard and mostly true. There are a few moments of dark humor sprinkled throughout that keep things from getting too monolithic. Sergei's snarky asides, the awkward civility between hunters and their wealthy sponsors, and the oddball moments where tradition bumps into modern absurdity, they all add human texture. You'll laugh in places you don't expect, which is why the film rarely feels like a straight-faced morality play. By the end, Sergei hasn't become a flawless hero. He's complicated, morally messy, and slightly tragic.